I think the economy is gagging on the policy uncertainty and all the things that are being played out now, and is pretty close to choking. This is by design. We've decided to do this. I can't get my mind around it because I can't figure out why. I wish it would stop. I just wish it would stop soon. In this environment, double your saving. Did you ever see the movie Ferris Bueller's Day Off? Guys might be too young for that movie.
Oh, come on.
No,
Too
no.
young. Shake it up, baby, now.
Hi, everybody. Welcome into the Sanity podcast with Dave Briggs and Alisyn Camerota. We need to talk about the economy. A lot is happening this week. In fact, the dreaded tariffs are going to be imposed this week in a big performance of excitement from Donald Trump and his team.
On Wednesday, it will be Liberation Day in America, as President Trump has so proudly dubbed it.
Liberation Day is here. Rejoice, everyone. Tariffs going on our allies, our enemies, north of the border, south of the border. Tariffs go into place on Wednesday, and 25% tariffs on the auto industry, cars and car parts, what I am eyeing in particular.
I think you're jumping the gun a little bit because we
don't know.
Because we don't know. I mean, you just say Liberation Day is here. Donald Trump changes his mind hourly, and he vacillates hourly. So people are certainly worried, and Canada is very worried, and our auto manufacturers are very worried. But who knows if he's going to do something before April 2nd, which is Liberation Day.
Because this is good TV. We'll tell you what Canada's doing later on in the show, but let's start with the chief economist at Moody's Analytics, Mark Zandi, our good friend here with us. Mark, should we rejoice for Liberation Day? What is going to happen on Wednesday?
I don't know. I think Alisyn's right. We'll see. I mean, I assume some so-called reciprocal tariffs are coming. That'd be broad-based. I mean, if you listen to the press accounts of kind of what's going on, I think the administration is trying to figure it out. But, I'm coming to the view that these tariffs are for real. They're not just, negotiating ploys. They are here to stay as long as they don't do tremendous damage to the economy, I assume. But I think we're going to see, when it's all said and done, maybe not on April 2nd, but as we look forward over the next 2, 3, 4 weeks, 3, 4 months, we're going to see higher tariffs across lots of different imported goods. I'd say buckle in or buckle up, whatever the right
Either
term is.
one, just put on your helmet. And so is there any way that this works out? I mean, Donald Trump is driven by the politics of vendetta, as we know. And let me quote to you why he's doing this. This is what, from Donald Trump's mouth: we have been ripped off and abused by every nation in the world. Okay, so that's why he's doing this. First of all, is that true? Has the U.S. been ripped off by every nation in the world for the past decades? And is there any way that this ends up working out the way he thinks it's going to?
No and no. No. I mean, there are certain trading partners with which we have a legitimate beef. I mean, the Chinese, obviously the poster child for that. But I mean, if you look at careful studies of tariffs and other trade barriers, because there's lots of different ways of impeding trade other than tariffs. The U.S. is kind of in the middle of the pack. Half the countries have tariffs and trade restrictions that are more restrictive than the U.S. And the other half less restrictive. Most of the countries with which we deal with, other than China and some other emerging economies, very comparable. Our kind of tariff regime, our trade laws and regulations are very, very comparable. So no, I don't think we're getting ripped off in any meaningful way. Not that it doesn't make sense to kind of take a careful look at everything, but I'm pretty sure you're not going to find any cases where, we're being ripped off to any significant degree. And no, this is not going to work out well. I just don't see how. This is a tax on American consumers, a very regressive tax. Low middle income households in particular are going to bear the brunt of this because they devote a higher share of their budget to imported product. And it's going to cost American jobs, in part because many businesses also import the things they need are imported. And so their costs are going up, which means less profits, which means less investment in hiring. And other countries aren't going to sit on their hands. They're going to retaliate, particularly when they figure it out that, these aren't tariffs that are going to go away. They're going to be around for a while. And if so, they're going to respond, and that's just going to cost jobs. I can go on and on and on, but no and no. this is not going to work out for the American economy.
Mark, the irony of the moment is the trade agreement we are under now, the USMCA, Donald Trump touted not too long ago as one of the greatest trade deals ever. How does he talk about it now? Isn't he ripping up his own agreement?
Yeah. I mean, free trade means free trade. I mean, no tariffs, or a modicum level of tariffs. I mean, they're sort of carving out the USMCA. So some of the tariffs that have been imposed on Canada and Mexico don't apply if they're USMCA compliant. But it feels increasingly that no, that deal, that free trade deal, really doesn't mean anything. And it's what is going to be made up here that really matters. Now, the USMCA deal does expire next year, I think spring of 2026. So, another deal may be cut by then, but given the way things are going, I wouldn't count on that either. So no, that free trade deal is in the trash can.
Mark, I want to just quote to you some of the things that President Trump's top economic and trade advisors are saying. So Kevin Hassett this weekend admitted on a Sunday morning show, quote, "I can't give you any forward-looking guidance on what's going to happen next week." So this is the person who, Trump relies on to develop economic policy. Peter Navarro, his trade advisor, said, "Trust in Trump." That's not a thoughtful, sane position. And so no wonder consumer confidence is plummeting. This is what his advisors are saying out loud on national television. We're just all going to, if we trust in Trump, when is all this going to work out magically?
Well, I mean, you're an advisor to the president, you're the head of the National Economic Council, that's Kevin Hassett. Those are the things you would say. I don't hold that against them. I mean, that's what you do. You're on that team and you're trying to advance the ball as best you can. I know Peter Navarro is all in on the trade war. I don't know if you got Kevin Hassett in a room and really talked to him. I'm not sure he'd be on board with all this. But again, he's on the team. But you make a good point. That is, it feels like this is very ad hoc, doesn't it? I mean, it's all being made up on the fly. And maybe you do that when you're thinking about what restaurant to go to. You don't do that with global trade, especially when you're really making everyone upset. I mean, just look at what's going on in Canada and Mexico and the EU, and why? I mean, why are we doing this exactly? I mean, to what end? What do we hope to accomplish? I can't quite figure that out. So I forgive the advisors. I just don't forgive the policy. I just think it's just. I mean, I just don't get it.
Of utmost importance, of course, is the health, the status of our economy. Take me back to October, let's say, before the election. How would you describe the economy then? How would you describe it now?
I'd say back then it was exceptional. The economy was growing very strongly. GDP growth was close to 3%, which is really very good in a full employment economy. Created a lot of jobs. I think we created, I'm making this number up, but roughly 2 million jobs last year. That's a lot of jobs. Unemployment 4%. Been at 4% for 3 years. That's full employment, and it's low across every single demographic. Stock market at a record high. Housing value at a record high. The economy had its blemishes, inflation, interest rates, the distribution of income and wealth. But these are, problems that were clearly moving in the right direction. But now I think the economy is gagging on the policy uncertainty and all the things that are being played out now, and is pretty close to choking. It's not quite there yet. I mean, there's still time to turn this around. But with each passing day, I grow nervous that the economy is going to gag, which means recession. We're going into recession. So I'm not quite there yet. I think again we have a little bit of time, but not a whole lot of time.
You mentioned the stock market there. The S&P was up more than 20% in back-to-back years. And now the stock market, take all three into account, worst start for a year since 2020. We all know what happened then. How does this moment in time compare to 2020 or other tenuous times and our recent history?
Well, I mean, from the stock market's perspective, it feels very similar. We're down 10% from the peak in a very short period of time. If that's the end of the script and we don't see any further stock price declines, no big deal because the stock market was very, very high, record high. So, yeah, that's not a big problem. If it goes down another 10%, which I think it will if these tariffs are imposed to the degree that it now sounds like they will be here over the course of the next few days, few weeks, few months. That's a deal. That's a big deal. The thing is, this period is so weird because it's all self-inflicted. I mean, the pandemic was, that was act of God, I guess. I mean, financial crisis, that was, you came, the system collapsed. It wasn't anyone's fault. I mean, per se. I mean, we made mistakes in the financial system, but here we're this is by design. We've decided to do this, and again, I can't get my mind around it because I can't figure out why. I mean, what problem are we trying to fix? I just don't see it. So it's very perplexing and very confusing and very disconcerting, and I wish it would stop. I just wish it would stop soon.
Mark, I think that that's very interesting what you've just raised because that gets into the psychology of Donald Trump of what is the end game here? What does he want? And I mean, I personally think, because I'm quoting him, these are his words, that what he's trying to fix is his feeling of being aggrieved. That is a fairly consistent feeling with him of being screwed over, of being victimized, this attitude of victimization. And so he thinks that we've been screwed over for decades and he's going to fix it. But what's interesting is that he also really likes being popular. We know this. I mean, he can be wildly inconsistent, but one thing that is consistent, he likes the polls, he likes big turnout, he likes being popular. And so, I'm already seeing the consumer confidence is falling. People who are Republicans, I just saw, it was the mayor of either Pontiac, Michigan, or one of the auto manufacturing towns in Michigan, who was saying, this is going to increase job loss in my city. This is going to lead to unemployment and maybe even worse than recession. I was reading stagflation. So at some point, I think that those two things are at cross purposes, and maybe that's what will get the president's attention.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how to psychoanalyze all this. I mean, the way you did it sounds plausible, but I've heard many other kind of theories. So maybe at the end of the day, he just believes in this stuff. Maybe he believes that the tariffs are a good economic policy, and economists like me have it dead wrong. We'll see. We're going to figure this out here pretty soon, I think. I mean, the president's really good at pivoting and declaring victory, and he may do that. But if he doesn't, if he goes down this path and those tariffs go into place in full force, we'll see who's right. Which maybe that's what has to happen here. We're going to have to see who's got this right and who's got it wrong.
It has been one of his core beliefs going back 30 years. If you talk to those in his inner circle, those who have survived, Alisyn mentioned a dreaded word that you economists fear. It's the S word. What exactly is it, and are we in danger of encountering that?
Yeah, stagflation is high inflation and weak growth, high and rising unemployment. We certainly directionally we're moving there. Tariffs raise inflation, right? It's just a tax that is in the form of a higher price, so it's inflation, and it weakens growth. We talked about that. Consumers have to ante up more to buy the same thing. They have less to spend on everything else, and so it directionally is stagflation. But generally, stagflation describes a darker kind of version of that, where inflation is very, very high. Right now, inflation is 3% ish. We're talking about something that's double that in a much weaker economy. The economy is 4% unemployment, where we'd be 5-6% unemployment. So the last time we really had stagflation was back in the 70s and 80s. That was true stagflation, and that's why it's so dreaded, because that was really bad. Double-digit inflation and double-digit unemployment. That's not going to happen this go around, and probably never again, because the Federal Reserve will just kill that, that in its crib. They will push the economy into recession before they let the inflation take over to the degree that we get into a stagflation scenario. So the current environment has flavors of stagflation, but the true stagflation is in the history books. I just don't see that happening. Again, having said that, unless the Fed's captured, unless the Fed, is no longer able to conduct policy based on the numbers, based on inflation and based on unemployment, and keeps interest rates too low for too long, then it's possible. But given the current Fed, that won't happen. They'll push the economy into recession before they allow that
Okay.
to occur.
So, Mark, this is really anxiety producing for so many Americans. Is there anything that regular people can do about this? Or is everyone just kind of a sitting duck waiting for this runaway train to decide which track it's going to go on?
Heads down, but I think you should be cautious. I think you should prepare for the possibility that you'll get your hours cut. You may lose your job. You're certainly going to have to pay more at the grocery store to pay your rent, ultimately fill your gas tank, buy a car. So all those things feels increasingly likely. So I would prepare for that. And the mere fact that I'm saying that makes it more likely we are going to have a recession, because that's what happens. People get scared, nervous, and turn cautious, and that's the fodder for an economic downturn. It all becomes self-reinforcing, and we're right there, right there. So if we had any counsel, it would be that, to be thinking really carefully about what debt you have, and make sure you pay down that credit card debt, and just be ready just in case things do go off the rails here.
Yeah, I'm just not sure how you're
increasingly
supposed to
likely.
prepare if you lose your job, but you're supposed to save money and pay down your credit card debt. I'm not sure how people are going to thread that needle.
I'm not sure
Yeah.
how to
Well, I
order
mean,
that circle, yeah.
that's why it's going to be tough. It's going to be very, very tough. But I mean, if everyone has a job now, or most people have a job, right? You have 4% unemployment. Wage growth is strong, right? The economy came into the year exceptionally well. So you're making money. People are making money. Their wages are rising faster than the rate of inflation. Stock market's down, but it hasn't cratered. Housing values are still at record highs. So if you're lucky enough to own your own home, you've got that. Hopefully you locked in those previously record low interest rates. So in this environment, double your saving. If you're saving, I don't know, a couple $100 a month, save $400 a month, something like that. Become cautious and, prepare, just in case things do go off the rails.
I hear a lot of people happy about their value of their homes having skyrocketed, but every one of them say the same thing. I can't move because of the real estate market. So it's almost monopoly money in that sense. I'm curious, when we look forward, is there any way that this hasn't ever gone into a good direction? Have tariffs ever worked? Is there one example? There must be something historically where they worked.
Not that I can think of, Dave.
No?
I mean, under President Trump's first term, it's the evidence is more sketchy, right? Because the tariff increases were on only $400 billion of imported product from mostly China. Here we're talking potentially $3.5 trillion worth of imported product. And we had the pandemic. It kind of obscured history. I mean, if you go back and look, the manufacturing base, the agricultural sector was already in recession by the end of 2019. Felt like the rest of the economy was starting to sag, and Fed was cutting interest rates to try to prop it up. But we don't have a clear historical record because, of course, the pandemic hit in February, March of 2020. So we'll never really know. But if you go back and look at other historical periods, and you have to go way back, the last time we actually raised tariffs to any significant degree was, I think it was Smoot-Hawley in 1930. That, of course, we had a Great Depression, but since World War II, it's been a steady decline in tariffs. And we went from, I'm making the number up, but 20% effective tariff rate to, it was 1% when President Trump began his first term. So that was a long, long period of declining tariffs. So we haven't had any. It's been 100 years since we've had experience with rising tariffs, and that didn't work out very well. Obviously, did you ever see the movie Ferris Bueller's Day Off? You guys might be too young for that movie. I don't know.
Come on, too young.
All right, okay.
Too young.
It's a defining movie.
Yeah. That's our wheelhouse, brother.
Oh,
Shake it up, baby, now.
All right, very good. Yeah,
You
that's
hit a nerve.
you remember that. You remember that scene. That was Smoot Hawley. So
Nice reference,
Yeah.
Mark. I very much appreciated it. I know this is a loaded question. What happens to the auto industry if, in fact, the 25% tariffs are put on automobiles and parts, and even if U.S. automakers want to bring back manufacturing to the U.S., how long does that take, and what does that do to the price of cars?
well, the first thing that happens is prices go up, obviously on imported vehicles, and we import about half the vehicles we purchase. And then domestic automakers will likely follow suit. They won't raise as much because they want to they'll grab market share, but they'll raise prices as well. So if you kind of do the arithmetic, if the 25% tariffs go into full effect and stay there, they probably add about 10% to a price of a car. So a new vehicle today goes for 50K, which is already pretty expensive, unaffordable for many Americans. So it goes to 55K. Something that's the first effect. The second effect is it hits demand. You're raising price, it reduces affordability, fewer cars are sold. Typically, we sell 16 million units in a good year. That probably with this, we go down to 15 million units. Most of that will come out of imports, but some of it will might come out of domestic demand as well. Uh, and that has all kinds of knock-on effects. Here's a really interesting factoid. The vehicle industry, manufacturing industry employs about 1 million people. Want to guess how many people work in dealerships across the country? Auto
How many?
dealerships.
No, you should know.
I should
Hold
know.
on.
How many?
2 million. 2 million.
2 million.
Oh
So if you
my
sell less
God.
cars, that's gonna hurt those guys because they sell imported cars too, right? And what about the insurance, vehicle insurance? What about maintenance and repair? All the people that work in those industries. So I think the net of all of it, maybe the domestic vehicle manufacturers, maybe they hold on to their production and maybe it goes up a little bit. Maybe they hire a little bit, but all these other jobs that are going to get wiped out are going to more than wash out the benefit of the jobs in the vehicle manufacturing industry. So net, it's a loss of jobs. So the vehicle, and then it really messes things. We're all focused on the near term, but it has all kinds of long term consequences. To go back to Trump, President Trump's first term, he imposed steel and
Aluminum.
aluminum tariffs. Federal Reserve just did a study showed that those two industries, since those tariffs were put in place back in 2018-19, the productivity of that industry has fallen 10 to 15%. That's because it reduces competition. If you don't have competition, businesses invest less, they invest less, they're less productive, they're less competitive. So, even in the long run, the tariffs don't work. They hurt even the industries that they're ostensibly designed to help. So, I think all of that happens with spades in the current go around. If in fact, going back to where we started, the tariffs are actually implemented, they remain in place, for any length of time. And by the
Wow.
way, that this is one thing that really bugs me is you hear, "Oh, it's gonna cause, a lot more investment in the United States." Businesses feel like, "Oh, they're gonna be protected by these, tariffs, and therefore they're gonna set up shop here and hire more people here." No, no, just think about it for 3 seconds. I'm a CEO of a global manufacturing firm. I'm deciding whether I should locate in the United States. Well, the first question I ask "What are the tariffs?" Oh, what will they be tomorrow? What will they be next week? What about next quarter? What about 3 years from now? Because it takes me 3 years to build a vehicle manufacturing plant. What about 2 decades from now? Because that plant's gonna be around for 2 decades. So I can't answer any of those questions. I have no idea. And do you really, because it's all done in executive order, it can be changed tomorrow by a stroke of a pen. It's not in legislation. So what am I gonna do with that? I'm not gonna invest based on I don't know what the tariffs are gonna be because the tariffs are pretty significant. By the way, there's all kinds of carve outs and exemptions, and it's all very opaque. I don't know what my competitors are getting compared to what I'm getting or what my suppliers are getting. I have no idea. So, with all that uncertainty with regard to how there's no way this is going to result in more investment. Again, go back to the tariffs imposed under President Trump's first term. Go look at business investment. It fell. It fell because businesses didn't know what to do with it, and that was a piker compared to what we're talking about now in terms of the scale.
Yeah, it's ironic because the optimism was that investment was going to come back when he got elected and deal making was going to start again. And deal making is almost choked off, to use your reference from earlier. There is no deals happening right now because of the uncertainty. None.
Yes. So, I mean, President Trump functions well with uncertainty, or he prefers it, and he likes chaos. But the vast majority of other leaders and CEOs and business owners and workers don't like it. So it's not working for them.
One more question I want to ask you about. The Mag 7, which is Amazon and Microsoft and the 7 stocks that have driven the market for the last 10 years, have lost a collective $2 trillion since President Trump was elected. How is that? And do you think those CEOs that all bent over backwards and ran to Mar-a-Lago to give $1 million checks are having a little remorse?
Well, you guys really want me to psychoanalyze everybody. I don't. Yeah. Well, try to be? You see, another movie, Being John Malkovich. That's what this is all about. Being John Malkovich.
Yeah.
You're too young for that, though. You're too young for that.
No, we remember. And
oh, come on.
And
we remember that.
And this is the half floor. The elevator only goes to the half floor here.
Okay.
You're right. No more psychoanalyzing questions. It's just remarkable that arguably those are the ones getting hurt the most.
They're probably scratching their head. Like, I mean, if I'm any guy, I can roughly psychoanalyze me, and I'm like totally confused by what's going on. So they must be confused too. I would guess.
Fair.
Yeah.
Fair.
Well, speaking of psychology, on our podcast, it's called Sanity, and we ask every one of our guests for their dose of sanity, particularly with this, Mark, because this is crazy-making stuff. And so what do you do to keep your head from exploding? What do you do as your dose of sanity?
I watch late night TV. Every night after dinner, my wife pulls out her phone and we listen to Colbert. We listen to Jimmy Kimmel. She's got into, I don't have Instagram, thank God, but she's got Instagram. She looks at these reels and they're like, people are so creative. It's like amazingly funny what they do. I mean, I go, how could anyone think of this stuff? But it's great. And it's also global. It's not just here in the United States. You can go see, what German comics are saying about the United States. So I highly recommend that. Do that for, 10, 15 minutes after dinner every night. You're good.
Yeah, I understand. I like those reels too. I particularly like the babies. I like babies and toddlers. I find very hilarious right now and soothing.
I like a lot of animals. I love, they figure out your algorithm, so they flood me with animals. They're like, this guy likes a cute animal more than anything. Pretty predictable, Mark.
That's why I refuse to go on it, because once you go on it, you're hooked on it. I'm not doing it.
Oh, yeah. Massive time suck.
Yeah. Well, Mark, really appreciated the chief economist of Moody's Analytics here on Sanity tonight. Really appreciate the time, my friend. Thanks so much. Love to have you back.
Yeah, anytime. It was great chatting with you guys.
Okay, that was really interesting talking to Mark about that. A couple of takeaways. Basically, I mean, it's worrisome when one of our chief economists says, buckle up, start preparing. I don't see any way this ends well. If you save $200 a month, start saving $400. I mean, he couldn't be more clear about sounding the alarm that we don't know how long this is going to last or how it's going to end.
And that there's no historical precedent. Look, we know Donald Trump's not a historian, but there is no historical precedent for tariffs working. That's what's remarkable about this moment. And that's why he called the economy being choked off right now self-inflicted. And it's really remarkable for those that this is not about Joe Biden, but those that said the economy was in such terrible shape. When you hear Mark Zandi talk about the shape of the economy in October as on fire in almost all accounts.
Yeah.
And now as choked off.
Well, look, here again, I think that much of the election hinged on or was certainly influenced by misinformation. I mean, there were right-wing echo chambers that talked about Joe Biden's economy and how bad the economy was, and people believed it. And now those same right-wing echo chambers are apologizing for Donald Trump and are covering it up. And so it's really tough to get people to look accurately at what's happening.
I would add one critique there to Kamala Harris. And I was just staggered throughout the campaign that she absolutely refused to talk about how the economy is healthy, because it was. All she had to do is hold up the damn Economist. She was pressed so many times on this and never boasted about the economy. She let them say drill, baby, drill, when U.S. energy production was at an all-time high and gas prices were low. She never sold the economy. She never explained how inflation is coming down and how we got here.
Yeah,
that is a lot on her.
Well,
I'm sorry.
Here's what I think probably happened is that her handlers and the polls said, you can't tell people the economy is good when they don't feel like it's good. And so that they felt that was sort of
That's
in
leadership.
your ivory tower. Yes, the explanation would have been leadership.
Right.
An explainer would have been leadership. But they felt like that's not how people feel. So you can't tell people they're doing great when they feel like, when they see that their eggs are, $9 a dozen and they don't feel like they're doing great. That's
Right.
what I heard time and again. But I agree with you that there should have been a primer about all of this, that a good leader could have just said, here's the math, here's the graph, here's what's happening.
I
here's
know
the job.
you feel bad.
Yeah.
I know your groceries cost a lot.
Yeah.
But here's the reality.
Yes, 2 million
The
jobs
U.S.
created, as
economy
he just
is
said.
the envy of the world.
Right. Yes.
Full stop. It ain't that hard, Kamala. That goes
I look
for...
forward to you running for president.
Sign me up, man. This is a communication game. After all, on the flip side, Donald Trump was talking about a horrible economy that he knew in the back of his head was pretty healthy. So,
Yes, good point.
yeah.
Okay, well, if people are wondering what to do about it, perhaps they need to take a page from our neighbors to the north. Canada is not sitting idly by. They are doing something that they call elbows up, which is their new battle cry. Elbows up, Dave, as you know, is a hockey term.
It is a hockey reference
Hockey
about
reference.
Gordie Howe, who is otherwise known as Mr. Hockey. They now are calling Gordie
Creative.
Howe Mr. Elbows because he was famous for bringing an elbow into the face or the body of his opponents on the ice. And this started with Mike Myers, the comedian you all know as Austin Powers. On the close of Saturday Night Live, after playing Elon Musk, he wore a Canada is not for sale shirt. And as the credits rolled, he said, elbows up, elbows up. And that's where it started. Now he's in a video with the new prime minister talking about that. And on the back of the jersey, it says 51, no.
Yeah, I think what's
We won't be the 51st state.
Absolutely. And I think what's interesting is that Canada, who are, have the reputation of being just the nicest people, they don't normally, except for maybe hockey, they don't normally have like bare knuckles politics, and that they are just refusing to sit idly by. Now, what can they do? I don't know. I mean, who knows if any action that they take. They are dumping American retailers off their shelves, so that will probably hurt a
Cutting
little
travel
bit.
to the United
Yes,
States.
cutting travel to
just
the
down
United States for
dramatically.
sure. But I think that the point is that they feel emboldened. They have this battle cry now, and they're like, we're not going to take it anymore. We don't feel like being treated like crap. And I think that the Democrats could take a page from that. It's an empowering feeling.
I think they do know how to fight. Democrats, that's a really good point, Alisyn. They should take note of what Canada is doing. Taking this one step further on a hockey side, and this is surprising, Wayne Gretzky, who is known as the Great One, the greatest hockey player of all time, is friends with Donald Trump and wore a MAGA hat to the inauguration. And now in Canada, where he is a god for winning 4 Stanley Cups in Edmonton, they are now cutting. They don't want any part of Wayne Gretzky. They want to rename the street that's named after him. His statue is getting vandalized, and 14,000 signatures to try to remove his name from things around
but even
Edmonton.
with this, didn't the new prime minister say, lay off Wayne Gretzky?
You did.
He's, again, the
did.
Canada nice. Again, he's not piling on. He's like, let's lay off Wayne Gretzky. He's entitled to his own opinion. I mean, so nice, so different than what we do. Did I ever tell you that I did once go to an ice hockey game?
Oh,
It was memorable.
do you know who was playing?
Yes,
Oh.
the Washington Flyer?
No?
Washington, give me a minute.
It is the
Washington
what of our country?
Capitals.
Okay.
That's what they're called?
Yes.
Okay, the Washington Capitals were playing. And here's what was so great. I don't like sports. I certainly don't like sitting through a cold arena watching hockey. But at some point, they came out and said, if the Capitals get 6 goals.
Free tacos?
Free pizza. Everybody gets a free pizza. I've never cheered louder for a game, including my children. So I was
you
like,
get 'em?
pizza. Yes. We
Yes,
got it.
you got the pizza?
We got pizza, but here's what I thought.
You never got the pizza, though.
No, let me tell you something. I thought the pizza was going to come out. Like I
No,
thought
you had to
people
use your
were-
ticket
you get a
stub
coupon.
and go to like
I was so excited for like the hot steaming pizzas to roll out of the
to
bag.
15,000 fans.
Yes.
You didn't do the math.
I didn't. I was so excited.
And you
like,
thought maybe they had to throw that pizza away if they didn't get to 6 goals?
I didn't think it through that
Your
much.
stomach
I was just
thinking.
so excited, and I was literally like this, pizza. Like I became a crazed hockey fan.
That's how you
my
engage
source.
Allison
Yeah,
in
and sports.
hockey and sports.
Any kind of sports.
Altogether.
Yes.
Well, you'd much rather talk White Lotus
Let's
than you
do
would
it.
hockey.
Let's
So
do it.
only one episode remains
I can't believe
in
this
this season
I'm
of
really
White
bummed
Lotus.
because it's such a delicious distraction. I really look forward to it.
I do too. It's maybe the only show I can remember in years where 9 o'clock on Sunday night, I'm
Appointment
like
viewing.
waiting for my daughter to go to bed so we can turn on
It's
White Lotus.
appointment viewing, and that's been a long time, like you said.
And one of the big questions to come out of the season is about the women, about female friendship, and can you ever have 3 or 5, or does it always end poorly like it has for the ladies in episode 7 and 6, really?
I recognize some of the dynamic in this. But it's not because there's 3. It's because there's always if you've known people since high school, people are who they are. So if one person was always stealing your boyfriend in high school, there's still the residual like, well, isn't this just always how you do it? You know, that when you add alcohol to that,
I think there's some scars here.
No,
I think there's some scars here.
There aren't, because I have.
Did you steal boyfriends in high school?
No, God, no. No. But my point is that like people are still it's baked in. And
So who were you?
I was none of
You
those.
give me a little
3.
glimpse?
No, but here's what I want to say.
Oh.
I've always had 2 very close friends wherever I live. Like it's been a threesome.
Yeah.
And stop.
No, I don't mean that. I mean explosive talking shit.
Yeah,
I didn't.
But it
I
wasn't.
didn't-
But we didn't triangulate like that. Like we're all friends. We were all
Really?
friends. So in other words, I reject the notion that 3 women can't be friends because you're always leaving one out. But I do think that old habits die hard from high school, for sure.
Yeah, Leslie Bibb talked about it. Mike White apparently saw a group of 3 women at the pool when he wrote this scene, and he said every time one seemed to peel away, it appeared that the other 2 were talking badly about the other. I don't think that's really true of male friendships.
No.
We're the total opposite. We'll spend 5 days together and not talk about a damn
I
thing,
know.
and it
You guys
drives
are
me
amazing.
crazy.
You guys are crazy. I
Like
don't
one
know what
guy
you
could be
talk
going
about.
through a divorce,
Yeah,
and
you
we
wouldn't even
wouldn't
know it.
even know it.
No,
Yeah.
I don't know what the hell you guys talk about. Maybe sports?
But is that why we don't get in these catty fights? Because we don't go below the surface?
No, I think that you guys just aren't built that way. But can we talk about what I think is Mike White's real talent? And that is so embodying an archetype. He Patrick Schwarzenegger, who plays the douche in this one. He's such a convincing, douchey guy, and we all know this guy. He's such a familiar character to me, like from my 20s. You'd run into that guy once a year or twice a year, and it was always like, this is such an empty shell of a human being.
But he always did well with the ladies. I agree. Everyone knows that douche. And
Yeah,
douche
they
is
do.
the only word for it.
That's
Like,
it.
it's perfect, isn't
perfect.
it?
And
It embodies everything that he is
plays
playing.
it so well. I really pray that he plays like Prince Charming after this, because he's playing it so convincingly.
That you wonder if that's him.
Yeah, a little bit. So I just hope that he is not tarnished by this. But I appreciate that Mike White knows this character so well that he can write such convincing lines for him and such a convincing character study for that
I
guy.
will give you that. That is a great reference. But Mike White is getting lazy, okay? And episode 7, which was Sunday night, I thought the scene where they were in Bangkok and Goggins and Sam Rockwell go to the home of the woman who owns the hotel, and the husband presumably to kill the old man. But they're sitting here talking about things and, you didn't apparently prepare. You didn't talk about the films that she was in. You didn't talk about what your movie is about. That was Scooby-Doo level of writing. It was very weak.
I loved it.
And if you were the old man
Yeah.
sitting there, you would have said, these guys are here to kill me. I thought when they went to the den,
Yeah.
he was going to go get a gun because he knew these guys
That's
were
interesting.
trouble. That's what I was waiting for him to come out with a gun and say.
Okay, I disagree. I think that both those guys, the Sam Rockwell and the Goggins guy, that they have impulse control problems. So they, of course, didn't prepare. They just are flying off, shooting, from the hip, flying off to kill somebody, like without preparing, because
They didn't have an escape.
Right.
They didn't have a getaway car.
Right.
They didn't have a plane ticket.
Right.
I mean,
That's
I
right.
just thought there was a lot of flaws there. And
Yeah.
again, if you were that old man hearing that conversation across there, you'd have said,
But I also thought
Shit.
that he was great in that.
I would have called my bodyguards.
Yeah, that's a good idea. But I also thought that the old man, whoever that actor was great in it, where he said, "I don't follow. I don't get what's happening." You could see, like, on his face,
And he just
things
played
yes.
the meek
I
old
know.
man in the end. I can't wait for the conclusion because it appears somebody going to die of a poison fruit smoothie, and it may not be the person who it was intended. That's been the theory for a couple of weeks, and it appeared to be the case in the tease when they showed the blender and they talked about the fruit that was poisonous, that will kill you.
I just don't want it to be
Suicide
over.
fruit, I think is what they called it, right?
Really?
Yeah.
I just don't want it to be over. I'm going to be sad that it's over because then we're going to have to wait a long time for the next season.
And I don't know what fills the void for me.
I don't know. They're going to need a lot more
Do
Sanity.
you have any recognition?
Yes, we want
God.
to recognize you.
Talking can be difficult. If you have any tips, let me know.
All right, that's your Sanity. See you soon.